Welcome to the Daly Joe podcast. Ribbit. Good morning, Joe. How are you doing today?
Good morning. Lovely solstice day.
That's right. Happy winter solstice.
I know. We're as far away from the sun as we're going to be all year.
Look at that. Tilted far away.
The darkest night.
Yes.
The longest night, but the days start getting brighter.
That's right. If you've been feeling the darkness and noticing things being tough, it has been. That's true. But as Joe said, we're on the mend. We're turning back towards the sun, and spring will be here before you know it.
All right, we got to remember to do a quick intro because we've been forgetting that. I'm Joe Pliss. I live out in South Windham. I'm now on the town council. I'm still doing planning and zoning and a few other things involved with the volunteer fire departments as well in a non-dangerous fashion. And I'm here with
Steve Daly, a local real estate agent, born and raised here in Willimantic. And I serve the community by helping people look for and buy the right property for them. And of course, if they do unfortunately need to move or leave our town, then I do help them sell for top dollar as well.
And we have a common interest in love of this town and wanting to look at all facets of the town and what might be opportunities for building a stronger town.
Absolutely. A stronger town is the goal, the mission, and honestly, I mean, I think where I see the progress is headed. It's amazing to walk down Main Street and see Trigo moving on in, Faux doing their soft reopening.
That's right.
I think tomorrow, some of my favorite places to eat, and of course those new apartments that are going to be right there on the strip to bring, hopefully more pedestrians, more walkability, more incentive to businesses and the town to really improve that area.
Well, the grand list is gone up, went off last year. It's slated to go up more this year, I believe, from what I'm hearing, which is an indicator particularly of more businesses moving into the area. And so while there are still plenty of boarded up places, there is certainly some room for optimism.
Excellent. I'll sneak in with that then. I'll take my place among the optimistic. That's amazing. And Joe, you have that insider perspective now being on the town council, and I think it was amazing when you were running, and even now, just how you are going around and talking to people in town about what their issues are and kind of looking at what the next smallest thing that we can do. Right. Small, not because we want to not have any big change, but because it's the most likely and easiest steps to take, right? Anytime you want to have a lasting impact, the best way to do it is one step at a time.
And sometimes where we go, besides knocking on doors to get a little pulses, to find out what's going on in Willimantic today, which is one of our favorite segments.
Willimantic today.
Where we scour through and look for the scuttlebutt and see what people are talking about that might tie into this. And I've noticed a couple things in the last two months, but I'm sure it's been ongoing. One is the number of people putting out posts sort of desperately looking for an apartment, whether it's one bedroom, two bedroom, they might have kids, they might have animals, and there's a certain amount of almost panic in those. And I think renters are having a real hard time trying to find a decent place and in relatively short order.
Right. Yeah. I know of a couple people that I've talked to that were happily renting in a space where they are in the last, either whether it was this year or the year before. The landlords increased the rent to a point where they just can't afford it anymore.
This is surprising to me. I heard a stat recently that 46% of the residents in this town live in apartments.
How many?
And
what was that?
46%.
Okay.
So we're a very high proportion of rentals in this town. I'm trying to get my finger on how many landlords that is. I've heard a number as large as 1,000. And now a lot of those landlords might not live in town.
Right.
But we're in a high rent town, and there's a shortage of good apartments, and you can tell because people are paying a lot of money for not the greatest quality of apartments.
Right.
And I really wonder why it is that we don't seem to be able to build enough to put downward pressure on. You know, you're in the real estate business.
Yeah.
Is there just not profitability for developers?
That's one issue. I think in Willimantic specifically, it costs a lot of money to sometimes do that building. Whether it's a new build, there's not a lot of land left to develop there. And if you want to renovate something, that takes a lot of money up front. It's a pretty big investment.
Is it just the money, or is there bureaucracy and difficulty, just kind of working with, I don't know, like,
people like
inspectors,
you on the town.
and other annoying politicians laying, rules and fees and taxes?
Yeah, I couldn't speak to each individual investor's issues as they, look at that.
Well, here's where I want to admit that, we often don't talk about things that we know about. Yeah. So if you're looking for expertise, I suggest you go to another channel.
Yeah. Well, that's a great thing to start with is, we only know what we know. I feel like I know, not just feel like I've been through the buying and selling process with
you know more than most people.
Residential real estate. I don't know how many times. I guess I could pull it up, but
is there
many times. But
on
the investment side, honestly, I haven't done as many. I've done maybe 4 deals for that, and it's been interesting, and I've learned a lot from it. But definitely, my focus is on single family homes.
What about people just flipping? Buying places, fixing them up, and selling them, or splitting them, and are people doing that, or is that?
Yeah. We just had one on Walnut Street that got flipped, and gosh, they bought it for $120. So it's just got under contract, I think, at $240. So definitely an opportunity there in Willimantic, because yes, home prices here, as we are finding from people's voices about their assessments.
Oh yeah, we can talk about
which
that.
That'll be later, but yeah, definitely your home value has increased significantly since 5 years ago. When
I hate to see these big old Victorians getting split up, but on the other hand, that's our housing stock, and obviously we're short on
families. Aren't as big as they were when those homes were built.
And if
not that you need to be a family, you could have a shared living experience, but even then, getting together, 5 or 6 people that you want to buy a property with, that's not very common either. So I think those are good investments, honestly, to buy and rent.
What would it take to actually put downward pressure? You have if half the town is in an apartment, say 12,000 people, and you need 10% more, units to bring it down.
Well, we just talked about, touched on it, I wouldn't say talked about, some of the hurdles for just building new apartments like that. And so an investor, that's not necessarily their first course of action, really. It's, they're thinking of their bottom line. What's easier? Well, it's to buy something that's already there, right? And turn it into a rental. So that actually kind of hurts people looking for single family homes or even a multifamily live in, and takes that opportunity away. So investors help by creating, more rentals. However, if they're only doing it by buying what's available, they're also taking that supply from people that do want to move out of renting and want to buy. So it's pretty simple. There's way more demand and need for housing than is
on both sides, on both apartments and homes.
Yeah, well, I say it's simple. It's simple to identify. That's the problem. But yes, how to fix that? That's the very complicated issue.
I wish Martin Kelly would finish up that set of apartments downtown. Just something like that could get it. Granted, those are market rate and they're designed to attract UConn grad students, and that might bring more people in. Yeah. But I also think that some portion of renters are going to move into those places. That's going to free up, some other apartments. Absolutely,
yeah. In more housing, more inventory is the answer. If we're looking to create more affordable housing here, right? Yeah. That is the answer.
Just competitive, just to create more competition to create downward.
Yeah. I mean, the market is what people are willing to pay. And if no other options are available, everyone needs a place to live. So of course, they're willing to pay more and more and more and more if there's no other option.
Another manifestation of the shortage of apartments is the increasing intensity of demands for the Fair Rent Council. We won't go into that too much, but the idea of a Fair Rent Council is people have some recourse to go to for landlords who are jacking up rents, and landlords are jacking up rents because A, it's more expensive to do everything, and B, it's capitalism. It's supply and demand. If supply is tight, demand is higher. You can an apartment that was $800 now you can get $1,200 for it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And humans, they just keep making more of them. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we're at just under 25,000 people in this town, and for the 2020 census. So it's possible even by now. This is a younger town, probably one of the younger towns in Connecticut, and so we probably are increasing, even though other parts of the state are decreasing.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean,
and so we didn't see sort of like the housing bubble that happened like everywhere else at the same time. Like at the beginning, like when people started leaving the big cities and.
It was definitely delayed here. Yeah,
we weren't seeing
delay.
it, but I think it's caught up to us.
Oh yeah,
and this is another item we were scanning Willimantic today.
Yeah,
and noticed a number of comments about the assessment letters that come out every 5 years and people getting, I guess, sticker shock.
Yeah, absolutely. And that happens with the assessments. I mean, I see it every time I list a home, and if I share it on Willimantic Today, there's always a couple people that are like, "What? No way will anyone pay that for a house?" Da da da, and it goes 30,000 over on average. I've had ones that go much higher.
Right, so people don't believe the listing price because it's so much higher than the last time it sold, and then there's a bidding war.
Right. I mean, and not knowing what's going on with the real estate market isn't your fault. Like, I don't hold that against you. I don't think you're stupid or anything like that. But yeah, when you get that assessment, take a look at the economic conditions and the market. And we actually dove into one of the properties that was posted on Willimantic Today there and looked, okay, is this assessment fair?
So in
is this likely?
So 2018 it was assessed around just under 100,000.
Yeah.
And then you got the assessment letter saying, "Hey, your house is assessed at 165."
Right.
And that's not the price that the town thinks you could sell it at, because that assessed value for whatever reason is 70% of what they think.
Exactly.
I have no idea why.
Roughly 70%.
So you got to take 165 divided by 70%, which is like 230 or something like that. So they're saying that your house that maybe 5 years ago would sell for 150 might sell for 230.
Yeah.
If it's sold for 160,
or 140. Yeah.
If it was 160, it might sell for 260 now.
Yeah,
so people are looking at that and saying, "What 60? My house is 60%, higher assessment."
Right, and it's hard to believe, right? Those kind of increases haven't really happened, historically. This was definitely the biggest property value increase in history.
So you got sort of delayed effect of the real estate boom, the bubble, possibly. That finally, if we're surrounded by a bunch of areas that have.
I wouldn't say. I just want to touch on. I wouldn't say bubble from what I'm looking at there personally. The demand is so high. It's just so high.
How much of
a bubble is when they're building too much, but there's not enough demand to really keep it. And it's really just low interest rates, so people are buying them anyway because they're affordable. Right now, interest rates are higher than they've been in the last 25, 30 years, and we're still having more.
How much of the demand around here is because the prices on housing is still relatively cheap?
I'm sorry, say that again?
How much of the demand that's coming in is because this area...
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Even though we're seeing 60, 70% assessment increases...
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up.
People looking at this market still say, "Wow, I can get a lot of house here."
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. And people from Willimantic, I've heard this a lot of people, like, there's no way my house is worth that much. Like, what are you talking about? There's people that love the town, but still don't believe that the value might be there, which is fine. But that's a big part of it is, if you think our values have gone up, look at the surrounding area, right? Those homes have really gone up. And yeah, we're kind of the lagging indicator, when the pandemic started and, places, the big boom and exodus from the cities, Boston, New York, Providence, people moving to Connecticut. They didn't start buying in Willimantic. They kind of bought all around. Out in the countryside, people wanted space, and those prices increased so much that really the best affordable option for people, whether they're around the area or from out of state, became an area like Willimantic.
Right.
So all of these urban centers really saw their values increase as well. But Willimantic came after a lot of the other areas, almost a year after.
Kind of an extreme of that, not tied to the area, but it was in the Willimantic Today thread I'm posting about this. Is somebody who now lives in Central Texas. Nobody would think that Central Texas is expensive, but a lot of people have been leaving California for various reasons, San Francisco and the big cities, and moving to Texas.
Right.
And their assessment increased 300%.
Right.
So it wouldn't surprise me if some of these areas in Connecticut that received a lot of sort of the COVID exodus saw similar kinds of increases.
Yeah. And I will say there are some places where there was a little bit of a real estate bubble and prices dropped when interest rates went up, but we didn't see that in Willimantic.
We didn't see it here.
No, because, basically affordability is one of the driving issues of our market right now. And Willimantic's one of the most affordable places to buy still, even if you look on the outside, even with the taxes, because prices outside of Willimantic have gone up so much. So even if interest rates rise and maybe there's bubbles in other parts of the state, because we're still the most affordable option, our market is still really strong because this is where people are going to buy because it's where they can afford.
What's got to be scary though is if you're you're from here, you're working, maybe you have an apartment and now you're looking for a place and all the costs of housing have gone up. Like your income didn't go up 60% in this time period.
No,
not for most people. So all of these houses that were like starter homes now are barely within reach.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And man, I'm working with a ton of buyers that if they didn't buy last year, we're looking at the market and they're just not buying right now. They can't afford it. It's not.
It makes you wonder how people like in California buy. Like they don't have big incomes and they're buying houses that are $700,000. Millions.
Oh yeah, it's a different world. It's a different world over there, man. Yeah,
but we're not there yet.
No.
But let's talk a little bit more about that assessment. Like one of the common comments I see is that the increase in assessment is like some kind of backdoor, sleight of hand way of increasing taxes.
Well, I think, yeah, right. I think we've read on there that, it is to increase taxes, right? It's really to keep the taxes up with the inflation that has happened.
Yeah, I think that's a misconception.
You do?
I do.
You don't think taxes are going to go up from the higher assessment?
Correct. They don't. Like it's math, actually. In my view.
Tell me more. So you're saying on paper my tax bill won't be higher.
There's a caveat to that, and it's an important one. But let's say that the town.
Are you factoring in inflation? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not even factoring inflation.
You're not.
Let's say last.
We're going to learn something here.
Let's say last year the town needed $50 million to run all its operations. Okay, so it's gonna get $50 million worth of taxes out of everybody. All right, and the assessed value of all properties was $1 billion. Okay, so what they're gonna do is they're gonna take $1 billion and divide it by 50 million, and they're gonna say, okay, that's for every $1,000, and the mill rate is 20. Like they're gonna just figure that out. They're gonna just whatever you are assessed at, that's your portion of that $50 million that you have to pay. So if you're assessed at $100,000 today, you're gonna pay that share of that $50 million. If everybody's assessment doubled, you're still gonna pay the same share.
Okay, but what you're saying is our percentage of the share is always the same.
On average.
But the dollar amount that each person is going to pay,
right? Like the town
is going to be more. Is that incorrect?
No, the town could. the town could
Right,
say,
because
you know what,
they have a bigger budget now.
they don't have a bigger budget. The assessment doesn't raise the budget. It's kind of like stocks. If you have a stock in General Motors.
Gotcha. So you're saying
and they
the
do a
mill
stock
rate
split.
actually will change. So that's where I maybe have confusion or just distrust of
I think
of
it's
the
a little
government
both.
there, where it's because I've seen that they say, oh, don't worry, like the assessment's going up, your taxes won't because the mill rate will adjust. That's
Exactly.
kind of what you're saying.
It's like a stock split.
I guess I'm saying I don't believe them.
Right. Okay. So let's go back to the stock split concept. So
Maybe I don't believe you.
If you got a share of General Motors and it's worth $100, and they tell you the stock split, and now you have two shares that are worth $50, you're not any richer.
No, I get that.
It's the same.
I
way.
think because it's
the same concept.
I think because it's the government, maybe I need to look at the mill rates more historically.
I
haven't
think the mill rates
seen them drop.
I think mill rates kind of distracting in a way. I think
isn't that the factor that determines if
I think the
percentage of what we pay on the assessment goes up or down? That's exactly
I think
what we need to look at.
The mill rate's more like how many shares you have in General Motors. I think the better number is to look at what's the revenue that's the tax revenue that the town is going to need to run operations.
Of course, that's important.
If that goes up, then you can expect.
We'll know next year if the mill rates change. Then I can get on board with you. But if they don't, then no, my tax bill's going up because the way to factor your tax bill is the mill rate multiplied by your assessment. If that mill rate doesn't change, your taxes have gone up.
Look, if the town needed $50 million last year, and they still needed $50 million, like they didn't raise any additional taxes.
I'm not saying they
their
don't
taxes won't go up.
They don't not need more money, but I'm saying my tax bill is still going to go up because
it won't.
If they don't adjust the mill rate, then
they will.
It's an equation.
No, the mill rate would absolutely adjust. So
that's what I'm saying. Next year, I have to see it. I have to see it adjust before I'm on board.
If they doubled your assessment and didn't raise taxes, your mill rate should be cut in half.
Right.
And now what people suspect is it didn't quite cut in half. It's like let's say your assessment doubled, and your mill rate didn't. It went down not by 50%, but it only went down by 40%. That would if they did that would generate more tax revenue for the town. And so instead of collecting $50 million, they would collect $55 million. Mm-hmm. But that's where our taxes go up, is if that total number, $50 million, goes up. And so that's the number that people really ought to keep their eye on. It's like, what's the total revenue in taxes that the town needs to run operations? If that doesn't increase, your mill rate will go down proportionally. If it does increase, then your mill rate's not going to go down by as much as your assessment went up.
Is there a correlation, though, to now these assessments come, does the town see that as an opportunity to, we'll lower the mill rate a little, but you know what? We know, right? They know what's going to happen, right? The equation changes. So instead of changing it to cut in half, for that example, I know that's not what is our exact situation. But they can see, we'll lower the mill rate. That'll show people that we're doing what we said we were going to do, but we have an opportunity to increase our budget because of this now.
Yeah.
What should we add to that?
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people suspect happens.
I guess I represent that part of the population.
If as a town council member, if somebody were to say to me, it's like, hey, you know what? This is the year we should raise taxes because they're going to get a lower mill rate, and if we don't lower it as much, we can make it less painful. It's not going to be any difference at all to people. I mean, what people are going to notice is, are they paying more dollars?
Right. Well, that's what I mean. And I guess until I see the tax bill next year, then
my guess is that
all bets are off.
Given inflation and increase in salary ranges and things like that, it wouldn't surprise me if the town budget is more than the prior year.
Huh. Oh, what a surprise. Okay, well, I'm glad this whole roundabout discussion, which was very informative, seems to prove my point.
But we'll know more about that. The first budgets start to come out in February.
Excellent. Well, guys, I'm sorry to wrap this up quickly, but we got to wrap it up quickly.
We do.
Got to get going here.
All
It's
right,
a
time
beautiful
for a shot.
Thursday. Happy winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, so we got to get more done in that little bit of time.
Go sell some houses.
Go, go make some beautiful changes in our town. Thank you for all you do,
All right.
you Joe. Thank you for all you do, you Joe, you Joe Bliss guy. Thank you everyone for listening. Please leave comments down below. There was some discussion in this one. I liked it.
We almost certainly said some things that don't make any sense. Please correct us.
All right, everyone. Have a great day.